it's Pete Hollands here. Today I'm going to be answering some questions from Bridge Pairs members. There's lots of things called rules. There's even things called laws in Bridge, like the law of total tricks. None of these are foolproof, and all of these can actually be broken, and I think it's really, really important to understand what the rule's trying to get across. I think the most common time that people forget that there's 40 points in the pack is when the opponents are bidding. Lots of people are told, don't trust your opponents. They're obviously out to try and make you lose. They're trying to beg you, so trust your partner. And that's a really solid advice. But it's important to go, the opponents aren't actually trying to make you lose on most hands. They're just trying to do their best. For me, I think it's really important to trust vulnerable opponents. Because if I've got two vulnerable opponents, it's really bad for them to be making up bad bids just to stuff me up. I think lots of these bidding wars actually happen when there's a bit of confusion. There's two types of things that can happen. So one was if there's a double, people just have this panic of, oh no, what if it's a takeout double? I just have to. And when they're unsure, they tend to just bid more because they're in doubt. I wouldn't be too afraid of doubling contracts and letting it make. It's not the end of the world. You can survive that. So that's the first one. I think the other time that people get into bidding wars is when they're so focused on their own hand. They just see this good suit rather than thinking about, it's a partnership game, we want to think, how high do we want to go, what should be trumps? And think, I really want to encourage this suit, but I don't necessarily have to insist on it. And when the auctions are getting misfits, you really want to try and stay low. So if your partner's battling you, you really want to think, can I leave it here? Is this actually a good spot to keep going? But, I think along the curve of learning, it's you need to be technically good, and that'll improve your main results quickly. And then you get to this competent level, and then the psychological part or thinking laterally takes over. The next most important, you want to be adaptive. And I think sort of experimentation's a really good thing. So again, people are taught lots of rules about this is what your bids show. They'll never test the boundaries. And I think testing boundaries is how you can improve or find areas where you're missing out on something just because the rules are a bit too narrow in various spots. But also right at the top, just partnership experience, everything. There's no world championship pairs that are just, we're two good players, we decided to play together today. It just doesn't happen. So in respect to hand evaluation, I think shape is fantastic. There's just a few hand shapes that I just always say, I love these. And a common one is a 6-4 shape. If I have a 6-4 shape and I find a fit in one of those two suits, I'm off to the races. I'm going to be bidding way more than other people typically do on it. So for me, I think high card points work really, really well for balanced hands. If you've got a balanced hand, high card points work great. As you get more unbalanced, it gets less and less effective. So when I'm more unbalanced, I don't lean on the high card point. I pretty much stop counting how many points I've got. I'll look at how many points my partner has and think, given their range, can I think of a hand that can make something? And the rule that I tend to use is that if I can think of a perfect minimum or even below that can make whichever level I'm going for, I will investigate. I'll go try and bid that game. The main thing that sways me on leads, firstly, is the scoring. So are you playing imp scoring where it's do you beat the contract and you get scores? Or are you playing match points, the percentage one where every single trick matters? I think it's really worth noting that if you're playing match points, just making sure you don't give away tricks is really, really important. An important thing to look for is a classic auction might be 1 no trump, 3 no trumps. And for this, you really want to focus on leading a major because the dummy's not going to come down with good mage. They haven't stamened, they haven't transferred. They're not going to have that many major suit cards. So you can still lead a minor if it's really clear to lead it. But again, if it's like, I've got this slight preference for clubs, but hearts looks okay, I would lead hearts. Do I lead partner suit or what I've got myself? There's a couple of things to look out there for. One is, how confident did their options seem like they were not phased at all about partner suit? If that's the case, if they're really confident about partners suit, then if I've got a decent alternative, I'll probably do that because they don't actually know about that one. So, I played in Canberra in the middle of winter at like a race course, and the heating had broken, and the night before, like overnight, it was below freezing. So rocking up, like, in the playing area, it was near freezing temperature. And everyone in there was heaps, it was a national, but like everyone was in their ski clothes, wearing gloves, beanies, just absolutely everything. So that was sort of unusual for how cold it was to actually be playing. I played the World Open Championship. I represented Australia. And played a couple of World Junior, quite a few World Junior Championships. And they've represented Australian Open in the Commonwealth Games. So the transition to being a professional player, so wherever you are, I think that the first thing is networking. You want to be talking with other professional players. And how I got my first break is I knew a few of them, and then occasionally they'll get offers, but they can't actually play. Either they're double booked or they're doing something, can't do it. And if you've already approached them, they might then go to the student who's learning, and go, well, what about this new player that they're up and coming as a professional player? Do you want to give them a shot? And that's how I got my first break. And once you start doing it and building a reputation about being one, then the audience will build. So I really recommend networking with your local professional players. There's also people that want to do that at a tournament level, just because there's better competition at that. They're still trying to improve. And there's also people that just feel like they enjoy bridge the most when they're playing at the highest possible level, and playing with someone that's going to help them get there is the way that they want to do that. This is something that I really read into a lot when I'm playing. It kind of feels like gambling, but I just started going, okay, I'm just going to trust my instincts and go for it. And let the bad results happen, and then just try and review it afterwards. But I think it's really important to understand why people are taking a long time. Like, there's some spots which are just absolutely clear. Like, if you lead an honor, and then someone thinks and for a while and then plays low, they have that missing card. They're trying to work out whether to cover it. So I like, there's certain ones like that where I'm like, this just, not 100%, but really, really often, these things happen where you've given them a dilemma. Or another one is you've got a singleton in the dummy. You've just won, you've led the singleton, and then they're like, should I go up with my ace or not, or should I do something? So those things happen quite a lot. I think a really important one that's often overlooked is how long people take to make a decision. So for me, like, a classic example of that would be one of my opponent's preempts. I've got a pretty good hand, but fourth person to act and pass. Then my right hand opponent thinking for quite a while. And I've realized that there's sort of two hand types that they tend to have. One is that they don't have a fit, and they're like, should I just run and do something else with my really weak hand? Which answer is usually you shouldn't do that, but some people are thinking about it. And the others are, they're trying to think about bidding game. like the style I like to play is I like to trust myself, test these instincts. Yeah, so I think Z is a name that would pop up very regularly. These sort of sorts of exhibition matches has been to them before, and just his way of thinking about it is like we're talking about sort of like psychological thinking laterally. He is one of the best, if not the best, of doing that. So for an exhibition match, being able to see really unusual spots like that would be fantastic. So here's another name that's right up there. I've got a bias to sort of like the age range where I was learning that were just ahead of me in the juniors. And there was quite a few really top players then that have even gone to a world-class level. And they're sort of there or thereabouts. But for me, personally, that's my spot. So 3 names that sort of pop out in that area. So there's Joe Grew from America. He's already played in a Bermuda Bowl, the World Championship, and been a runner-up, and he's maybe 10 years older than me. And there's Augustin Medalla, who plays on the Italian Lavazza team. He's a little bit older than me as well. He's come out to Australia as well. And there's Dennis Bilde from Denmark, who's actually my age as well, and is like just a sensational player. And like those 3 from roughly my age group, they've got exciting play styles. They're really good card players. I reckon they're really, really interesting to watch whenever I've seen them. So none of them are partnerships, but I like all of them, and they're nice people. So like for me, like my personal preference of watching those 3 would be fantastic. Another person that I really want to see just for what they've done for bridge in general is Boya Breglin. Is the one who uncovered all the cheating scandals. And he has absolutely top-class ethics, fantastic bridge player. So amongst those 4, like, I reckon it would be a really interesting match. They're all fantastic people. I'd like to see them all play. Anyway, thanks for all the questions. This has been Pete Hollands, and thanks for being on Bridge Pairs. Look forward to seeing you again soon.